Lex talionis, the law of retribution, which argues that the punishment for a crime should not exceed or be less than the harm done by a crime, is perhaps intuitive, plays a large role in the thinking of both Hegel and Kant in terms of their approach to retribution. It's so ancient, it's found in the Code of Hammurabi, and is a way that many people look indeed at punishment itself. Punishment should fit the crime. And yet, when we look carefully at the laws of tsaras, we might find ourselves troubled. Tsaras comes in stages. Biblical leprosy is an affliction that's generally a punishment for people who engage in lashon hara, in inappropriate speech. First it affects one's clothing, then it affects one's home, then one's clothing, then one's own body. And so it's very surprising to find that even a child at the age of 1 day can be afflicted with tsaras. How could that be? Certainly that child hasn't spoken lashon hara. There doesn't seem to be any phased process here. And obviously, if a child is being plagued with biblical leprosy, it's a message for the parents. To see one's own child disfigured, disformed, that's something that's so jarring that how could any parent not react, not recognize that there's a problem, that there's some spiritual issue that requires repair. But the child itself is innocent. How could the child be afflicted? Question is a difficult and uncomfortable question. But it suggests to us that while we can't explain why exactly this is, we can't explain why the child, so to speak, deserves to suffer in this manner, we can understand that Hashem seeks to communicate messages to us in different ways that are often not obvious. He uses mediums that sometimes are shocking and disturbing. Mediums that might cause us to lash out in anger and say, it's not fair, it's not right. What did the baby do? But, as Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch argues, it's on the parents to recognize that their actions, their behaviors, their mode of conduct is what brought about such a situation. We don't have prophets who can explain to us why the events of the world happen. We don't have seers to tell us why an individual goes through the suffering that he or she endures. But we do have an obligation, as much as is realistically possible, to try to pick up on the messages that are being communicated to us. Maybe if something happens in life, maybe it should be pause for thought. Maybe we should ask ourselves, what does this mean? Why is this happening? Maybe in our own language, in our own time, in our own way. It could be while we're driving a car, while we're doing the laundry. Maybe we need to talk to Hashem a little bit more. Maybe we need to allow ourselves to be awakened. Must be so terrible for a parent to see a child, a baby, an infant, afflicted with tsaras. Terrible thing. But it's almost certainly a wake-up call. And so, I think in a world where we are bombarded with imagery and with messages, it's important, I think, to allow ourselves to be sensitive, to allow ourselves to realize that maybe we can every once in a while understand why an event happens to us in our lives. Again, we're not prophets or seers, but if we try and appreciate what's happening in our lives, and if we perhaps give deeper thought to our actions and maybe even to our misdeeds, there are opportunities not only for correction, but there are opportunities for growth and development. And those opportunities are not challenges to be feared, but opportunities to be embraced. And just as the one who is afflicted with tsaras goes through a very difficult process, including excommunication, before that individual can re-enter into the camp, the time period where a person has to really give thought to how they live and to what they've been doing, what they've been saying. So too, the more we are aware, the more we think, the more we give consideration to our ways, even if it is challenging, the more valuable it is to us, the more important our own lives become. So let us be aware of the signs. Let us try perhaps to learn the lessons from the events of life. And let us hope that we will experience the ultimate experience that the Mitzorah, that the biblical leper has, and that is ultimately the experience of coming to the Beis HaMikdash. May we share in that experience speedily in our days.